Hey, welcome back to my office. Today I wanted to talk to you about alternative treatments for attention deficit disorder that actually can work. And it's an important topic because every family wants to know, is there something besides prescription medications that can help my child or my teenager or help me if I have attention deficit disorder? So we're going to look at some of the things that we know work. Work in terms of have measurable impact, measurable improvement, measured by something like a TOVA test, a test of variables of attention. It's a computerized test that measures four variables. First one, like reaction time to 1,000th of a second, errors of omission, errors of commission during this test, and variability of response to the test. So it's an excellent test to both help in making the diagnosis of ADHD and then also in looking at what kind of treatment modalities, treatment methods are working. So it's not uncommon to get a baseline test with the TOVA and then, for instance, have a trial of medication, prescription medication, and retest after one dose or 1 week and see if the person is actually a responder to that medication or not, and if so, how much. So the same is true with alternative treatments. They should be able to be measured by objective measures like a computerized test. So we have things like this. These are really fun. And spinners are great, and they were sort of brought here to this country to calm down people who are easily distracted or fidgety or whatever. It can sort of do that. And they're fun. But they're not, the effects are not going to be measurable. You're not going to see statistically significant improvements as measured by a computerized test with a spinner. It may work. It may work to calm somebody down certain times of the day. That's great. But it may not have that kind of a lasting effect that you're looking for. Other things are in this category that may have short-term impacts. For instance, I have heard a number of people say that they take like a vegetable scrubber thing that they use to clean their vegetables, and that they'll put that on the arms of their child or their back or something lightly to give a lot of stimulation to the body, to the skin, and that will calm some people down. Now, that's in a different category. Those are things that might work for your kid, might not work for your kid, but they're not going to be measurable. But you know what? I'd try them. I'd try whatever might help on that road trip to Grandma's house, you know. So let's talk about some of the things that would work and would be measured, and they're kind of not going to be prescribed by your medical doctor. So your medical doctor might say, I don't know anything about them, so they don't work, because that's a phrase that I have used in my life before. They'll tell you that story at some point, how that I decided that my ignorance of a topic made me an expert on the topic. And I've learned since then that's just not good wisdom. So here are some things that you could certainly research more that might actually be helpful and make measurable differences even when measured by something like an objective computerized test. Here are some. First one is called synaptamine. Synaptamine. And it is available online. It is a liquid product. It's a liquid amino acid based formula that was developed by Kenneth Blum and his team of researchers to work on addictions. Kenneth Blum is the first researcher really to identify the genetics of addiction. And he was laughed at for 10 years, and now he's a hero, right? So, but for a number of years, he was ridiculed. But he was that guy. And so he developed a product that could be used by people in recovery for it's that part of the brain, that reward system part of the brain that's so serotonin and dopamine driven, that is rewarded by any kind of addiction. And so this product helps those reward centers both by creating serotonin and dopamine, and then also by just changing the process in the brain. It's a good product. There are about 4 studies that have been done over the past 10 years on the use of this with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So it may be helpful. There was a time when I took it every day for months. I just thought I'd try it, and I liked it. And what I noticed the most when I took it, I just took half a capful every morning. I took 1 dose instead of the recommended 2 doses. You just drink it. You know, put it in a capful and just sip it, drink it. Put it in a glass of water, drink it. And that makes it very easy, especially if a young child who doesn't swallow capsules or pills well. So what I noticed was every person in my life for that day was nicer. Everybody was nicer. My clients were all nicer. My family was nicer. Everybody was nicer. So it didn't change me at all. It just changed everybody who walked into my world that day for months. So it was great that way. And then ran out. It didn't get any more one day. But I liked it. And so it's something to look at. It's called synaptamine. And it's an over-the-counter product. You can buy it online. Another online or over-the-counter product that I really like is Attend. It's made by Voxa International out of Tampa, Florida. Now, I used to be highly involved with this company back 1998. I helped Greg Young to develop this product. I did all the research testing on it, on each formula, till we came up with a formula that actually worked well. But I did all the research and development for the company on it back in 1998 and on this newer formula. It works really well. And I've done TOVA testing with it and able to compare it with Ritalin and with EEG biofeedback, traditional EEG biofeedback as taught by Siegfried and Susan Othmer at EEG Spectrum. And these are 3 things that work. Attend took longer, took about 30 days, just like neurofeedback. EEG biofeedback takes 30 to 60 days to really work. But they all work. They all help in one way or another. Of course, Ritalin takes 15 minutes to kick in and an hour and a half to peak. So that there's some advantage in that, but you have to keep doing it. You know, the Attend is a daily formula, and it takes about 30 days to work. It's an amino acid-based product. It does have herbal things in it. It does have some vitamins in it, but it's effective. I mean, actually, it works. So I'm convinced it does. Let me put it that way. I'm convinced it works because I did a lot of research with it for the company and for myself. So that is a product that you can get maybe at your health food store. And what happened was Voxa still labels it. They still are in charge of it. And in this video, I'm going to try to get a quick interview with Daniel Giddens, who is the product development specialist for Voxa. He's an old friend of mine. I'm going to try to get him either on this video or we'll make an adjunct video to go with this and just interview him about that product, Attend, and how it may have changed in the last 20 years, 30 years. So Attend, and Voxa was bought by a company in Salt Lake City, Utah called Nutraceutical Corporation. And Nutraceutical Corporation owns 15 or 20 nutritional companies. And so half of what you see, a whole bunch of what you see at a health food store comes through their catalog, through their wholesaling these products to your local health food store. So they may well carry Voxa products, in which case health food store in your neighborhood may have Voxa Attend. You can also get it from different providers on Amazon.com. And that's usually a pretty good product. I would not buy it from somebody on eBay. I just wouldn't. Don't really know what's in that bottle. Don't really know how old that bottle is. There's a shelf life to the product. So I just wouldn't buy it on eBay. But Amazon, I would. And certainly from your health food store, I would. So Attend is for the symptoms of ADHD. X-Stress, EXTRESS. a sister product made by the same company. It's an excellent product. It's a really excellent product. It works for stress, anxiety, and it works for the impulsive hyperactive child, and also for children who have impulsive temper outbursts and that piglet kind of ADHD that is kind of spun up with anxiety. It really helps with that. So it's good in combination with the Attend. You can do them both together, and the X-Stress is an excellent product. Again, over the counter, you can get it at Amazon and get it at your local health food store. So we've got synaptamine, we've got Attend and X-Stress. Neurofeedback. We'll probably do another video just on EEG biofeedback, but just really quickly, let me just tell you that there are several different kinds of technologies that are under this umbrella of EEG biofeedback or neurofeedback. It's a biofeedback system. Takes some information from your body, goes into a machine, into a computer, then it's fed back to your body in a way that it's useful, so you can make changes to it. So some biofeedback is just muscle tension or hand temperatures. Other kinds of biofeedback is brainwave biofeedback. And brainwave biofeedback's been around a long time. It's nothing particularly new. When I started off 30 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago with neurofeedback, I was back at the Menninger Foundation back in Topeka, Kansas, and learned alpha theta neurofeedback back then for addictions and other kinds of treatments. And then I met Siegfried and Susan Othmer. And my story of my ignorance made me an expert has to do with neurofeedback. I used to run CHAD meetings in my community in Bakersfield at a hospital that I worked at the time. And somebody asked me what about brainwave biofeedback as a treatment for ADHD? And I stood up in front of 100 people or more, and I said, it doesn't work. And she said, how do you know? And I said, I actually said this. I know everything there is to know about treatment for ADHD, and I don't know anything about that, so it doesn't work. And she was very kind. She said, Doug, we love you, but your ignorance of the subject doesn't make you an expert in the subject. So, and that was a lot of years ago. So I called the Othmers the very next day. I said, okay, tell me about this. And they told me about it. They're wonderful people. They're in the San Fernando Valley outside of Los Angeles. And I drove down there, went through their training. I laughed through their training program because I said, if this is right, everything I know is obsolete. And got me a couple of units, a couple of machines, and used it for about 7 years in my practice before I went full-time in the ministry. And it worked for about 70% of the people I used it on. Man, this technology worked. And this was a technology where we'd wire somebody up with electrodes, and then by changing filters, people would get feedback like a computer game that they'd be playing. Make the blue box big, make the green box small. So, make these kind of brainwaves small, make these kind of brainwaves bigger, paying attention brainwaves bigger, and so on. People could learn to do it. It would take them 20 hours, maybe 30 hours on a machine. They could learn how to do it. So it was great for ADHD, anxiety to some extent, certainly peak performance training at the other end of the scale is very good for that. Olympic athletes use it. Military fighter pilots use it. It's pretty cool. So I saw a really good benefit from it. And then in that time, I met a man named Len Oakes who was working on how to marry that traditional, we'll call that traditional neurofeedback, with a kind of brain entrancement where you could change the way the brain was operating without the brain having to learn it. It sounds complicated, but it's not. So anyway, I worked with him for a couple of years collecting data as part of his research team for the FDA, and that was then called the Flexix system, and now it's called low energy neurofeedback system. It is different. What I worked with truly is the grandfather of what is used now. But what I used back then, 25 years ago, worked well. It was very powerful, very fast. Didn't take 20 or 30 hours. It took 5 or 6 hours to get the same kind of results. It was very fast. And I saw it work with ADHD. I saw it work with anxiety and panic and post-traumatic stress disorder. And now it's even much, much better. So this is another form of neurofeedback, but it's a direct neurofeedback. So Len Oaks has his low-energy neurofeedback system and has his group of providers. And I would, if I were you, I would Google this if you're interested, low-energy neurofeedback, see what providers are in your area. 2 other companies, same basic technology. One is called High Performance Neurofeedback. Now, a man who was working once for Len Oaks decided to start his own deal and do things a little bit differently, and he's done very well. Wrote a great software program for it, called it High Performance Neurofeedback. And his company, I think, was bought by Fred Willis, who, I think that's how it works. And anyway, Fred Willis now is the president of the company. He's a former NFL football player, and much of their business is with former football players. NFL players, college players get their heads banged up a lot. And this technology is like cool for working with people with concussions, post-concussive things, TBI, and so on. The thing about football players is it's not just having your bell rung where you got to get dragged off the field. Not just that kind of concussion. Those things are bad, but it's not just that. But it's also that you bang your head, well, in high school, probably 25 times a day in practice and in games. In college ball, it's probably 45 or 50 times every day. And then in professional ball, it's 50 to 60 times every single day you're having these hits on your head. They may not be concussions, but there's still these hits. So the brain adjusts to that, releases certain kinds of proteins, and it effectively ages the brain way too fast. So way, way too fast. So anyway, the high-performance neurofeedback, a lot of their market is former NFL players, former college players. And then a man who was the former medical director for Len Oaks and the LENS system, low-energy neurofeedback system, his name is Dr. David Dubin, and he was sort of my mentor in this, as doing it a second time now in my life. And he has Clarity Direct Neurofeedback. So I'm using his system right now, and it's fabulous. I see tremendous results very quickly, especially with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and ADHD. So very happy with that. That's a alternative treatment that is worth checking out. There's traditional neurofeedback, the Siegfried Othmer EEG spectrum type of feedback. And there's also then the low energy neurofeedback family with high performance neurofeedback and Clarity Direct Neurofeedback. So I would check and see if there's a provider in your area. I have no idea what they charge. Down in LA, they charge $250 for a half an hour session. In my office, I charge $150 for an hour session. So I don't know what they're going to charge wherever you are, but I would check that out. It's very powerful. So we've had synaptamine, and we've got Attend and X-Stress and the EEG neurofeedback, and these are very effective alternative treatments that are measurable. I mean, we can do a TOVA test, we can measure the impact of it, we can measure the difference that it makes in your life. These can be helpful. Other things like this can be helpful, but we're not going to be able to measure them on a TOVA test. So there it is. There's some alternative treatments that we know actually work.